Hey everyone, it's Kong again with a special episode of Should You Summon. As always, I'll be presenting high-level overviews using these 4 criteria to help you decide whether this banner is worth your hard-earned vouchers and crystals. How they fit into your team, whether they unlock any bonds, what kind of content they get used for, and their future availability. So let's hop on into this Mythical Realm catch-up banner featuring Rainforce, Zerida, and Gizarof, running from September 10th to the 23rd. Of course, this is a Destiny banner, so when you pop your first SSR, it's guaranteed to be one of the 3 on-banner units that you don't already have yet. After that first SSR, then you can start summoning off-banner characters. So let's get started with Rainforce. Rainforce is an interesting PvP-focused character with a lot of moving parts. If you like some of the more technical characters, then you might be interested in him. When he does damage, he gets a stack of stats. He can stack this up to 7 times, which gives up to plus 28% to all stats at 6 star, but when he gets that many stacks, he acts again, and then teleports himself to the nearest ally, and all those stacks are wiped. His 3-cost skill instead piles fixed damage debuffs on enemies, and immediately resets its cooldown if you damage 3 of them. Probably not too hard with a 3-line AoE. It's probably obvious, but he usually wants to run with a Balance Blade to help him hit as many enemies as possible to help him build up his talent and 3C stacks more quickly. He's a member of Mythical Realm, buffed by Gizarof and the upcoming Tree Sage, Strategic Masters, buffed by Ultimuller and Lanford, and Yales Legends, buffed by Landius and Sigma. For bonds, he unlocks the attack bonds for Virash, Shalinka, and Brenda. For his own bonds, he needs Gizarof for his defensive bond, and he's on this banner, and Sigma for his attack bond. For content, in PvE, he's on faction for Sleipnir, Needhogg, and Fenrir in Ancient Beckoning, and Phoenix in Eternal Temple. But his highly specialized kit doesn't really do anything that makes him especially favored over other more commonly run units for those fights. He's definitely set up more for PvP, with some teleporting, acting again, and formation disruption built into his various skills and his talent. He can be especially useful in lower and mid-level PvP, where people are far less likely to know or understand what he does. He hasn't shown up as one of the top PvP units quite yet, even with his 3-cost skill in the mix, but Mythical Realm as a faction does keep getting juicier. If you have Gizarof, and you throw Reen and Aryan Rod into the mix, then throw Tree Sage and eventually Rosenseal into the mix, Rainforce will be right at home in that crowd. For availability, based on the Chinese banner schedule, Rainforce isn't showing up again for at least the next 5 months or so. He's not on the schedule at all, which means we shouldn't expect to see him on a banner until mid-February at the absolute earliest. Alright, the next 2 characters are interesting and unique in the sense that they each debuted a new faction when they launched, for which they're currently also the sole buffer. It's an honor to have them together on the same banner here, so I think it's only fitting that we should honor Should You Summon with a very special guest to help me present them, so over to you.
Hi everyone, this is Dango, so I need to say thank you to Mr. Kong first, because Kong invited me to his most famous series Should You Summon. So today we are going to talk about Should You Summon in the Zerida and Gizarof banner. So Zerida and Gizarof are both pretty good character and they have similar factions. Zerida is like the Dark faction, Mythical faction, Meteor faction, whereas Gizarof is in Mythical and Dark faction. So Gizarof will have the potential to have one more faction later. A lot of characters, when they are released, they only have like 2 factions, and then their 3rd faction is included in this game. For example, Diahard was protagonist and Origin of Light faction at the release, and then after Zerida is released, which introduced the new faction, Meteor faction, then Diahard joins the Meteor faction. So we can see Gizarof has the potential to become one of the characters in the newest faction in the future. So that's something to keep in mind. And both characters actually call faction buff. Zerida is the only faction buffer for Meteor faction, which is a pretty strong faction in both PvE content and PvP content. And Gizarof calls faction buff for Mythical faction. He is currently the only faction buffer for Mythical faction, but later, 2 months later, there will be another character introduced to global server that will be the second faction buffer for Mythical faction. Nevertheless, if you want to play Mythical faction box now, if you already built a lot of Mythical faction characters, then you should definitely summon Gizarof. Both the special gear and suicide skill are released for these two characters in the Chinese server. Those special gears and suicide skills are pretty solid for these two characters. Zerida's suicide skill combines the Killing Bow and Alcazar together, which basically saves one more extra spot for Zerida to carry another skill, most likely like a passive skill to increase Zerida's kill potential. So the suicide skill actually makes Zerida pretty good. With the suicide skill and another passive skill, for example, one of the passive skill of Zerida increases her attack by 10%. So with this combo, Zerida can actually potentially kill Juggler, and it is actually pretty reliable kill. So this makes Zerida really good in the future. So investing Zerida will be worth it even for the future. For Gizarof, we know his suicide skill is to transfer one of the old construct to a new bigger construct, and this is actually a pretty solid skill for Gizarof. Actually increase the utility of Gizarof as well. Like some of the buff for the new construct includes the reduce the damage taken when attacking. So actually Gizarof's new construct is pretty tanky. In a lot of PvP, we have seen these kind of constructs give a lot of trouble to opponent's tank. So yeah, at the run timing, they can be used to help you kill the opponent tank. And also they can bring some AoE damage, some debuff as well, so it's pretty solid for Gizarof. And the special gear for Gizarof can increase the skill of the construct, which is also pretty consistent in how you should play Gizarof. So basically, the suicide skill, the special gears makes both characters more reliable in both PvP and PvE content. So that's a good reason to summon them. And then one of the other reasons to summon a character is that if they are needed for other character spawns. So Zerida is needed for SR character Frequia, and the other character is SSR character Yulia. So these two characters are pretty old in this game. Frequia is like a SR assassin, which is pretty interesting to play. Yulia is one of the best character for PvE content, just because the way she is very sustainable. She heals after she attacks. She also can fix the opponent, so they will not reach your characters staying behind. So Yulia is a very strong PvE character, and sometimes she can also be used in PvP as well if you provide all the support that Yulia needs. So yeah, if you want to play these characters, of course you need to summon Zerida. And for Gizarof, he is needed for Rainforce. So Rainforce used to be not very top level, but Rainforce recently got his suicide skill, which is a pretty fancy suicide skill that has a pretty decent AoE range. And Rainforce actually deal pretty high damage with his suicide skill. So Rainforce has been pretty good in global server already, so if you're a big fan of Rainforce, you should summon Gizarof. So those are the other reasons to summon in this banner. And so overall, I feel like Zerida is pretty good in PvE content. We know the other character, Omega, is really the king of PvE. You basically just one-shot anything other than boss. So Omega needs Zerida to call faction buff. So yeah, this is why Zerida is also very popular in PvE content. And Zerida herself, her mobility is great when she can activate her talent. So the Hide and Sneak makes Zerida have 7 mobility, and if you trigger Breeze, then she has 9 mobility. So that's a very long range for any PvE content, especially joint battle. So if you want to have an easier life in joint battle, if you already have Omega to use, then there is a good reason to summon Zerida. So for Gizarof, he is more of a PvP unit, but you can still use Gizarof in PvE content, especially if you enjoy the Mythical faction. Mythical faction have a lot of interesting and strong characters, like Zerida is also in Mythical faction. like Born is in Mythical Faction, like a lot of AoE characters like Rainforce, like Lamata are in Mythical Faction as well. So yeah, Mythical Faction is a pretty strong faction, and Yusuke, of course, is also in Mythical Faction. So those characters are mostly strong in PvP content, but I mean, if you just like them, for example, if you're a big fan of Yusuke, you're a big fan of Rian, Anohond, you want to just use them in PvE content, Timeless Trail, then you have to have someone to call faction buff, and Gizarof is definitely one of the top choice. So in that case, yeah, Gizarof is pretty good as well. So for PvP content, Zerida, I mean, if you play PvP, I probably don't have to explain how strong Zerida is. Zerida basically kills anything that is not a tank. So yeah, Zerida is just a very, very top tier. And as I said, Zerida's 3C skills make her kill potential even stronger, so it is going to be a good investment. If you summon her now, you can 3-star Zerida, you can finish building her at the end of Season 6, and she's still going to be good at that time. So that's pretty good investment. And for Gizarof, yeah, we talked about how many crazy characters Mythical Faction has. Rian, Anahond, even Baozo, Juggler, Zerida, Bernhard, those are all Mythical Faction characters, and all of them are pretty strong in PvP. So yeah, Mythical Faction is the current best faction for PvP. So Gizarof in this case is more of a supportive skill, in a way that he can call faction buff, and he summons construct, and this kind of summon and use the 3C skill to sacrifice the old construct to generate a new construct, censored well with characters that require some characters in your party to be killed. For example, Yusuke, for example, Rian, those characters will really receive this kind of bonus when you have Gizarof with them. When Gizarof uses the 3C skill, or when any of the construct is getting killed, those will all bring benefit to those characters. So this is a great reason to summon Gizarof if you want to focus on PvP later. Yeah, I really think Gizarof is going to be very strong. A lot of new characters, strong characters that is coming in the Chinese server is still considered Mythical Faction. For example, one of the best healers in the future, Rizocell, which is a huge counter to AoE bugs, and she is also in Mythical Faction. So yeah, as we can see, I mean, Zerida is strong in both PvE and PvP. Gizarof you can use in PvE, and he's super strong in PvP. So yeah, that makes this banner really worth it. If you don't have any of them, I would say definitely just go summon. If you are like a new, like a beginner in this game, you want to play PvP, I would even go all in with this banner and try to get as many copies as possible. You know, sharding characters really takes a lot of time, especially maybe some characters you will need to shard from the very beginning. Like these two characters both very good for PvP in one banner. If you can summon some extra copies, then it will make your like sharding life easier. So this is like pretty much all I want to say about this banner. Just to note that neither of them is going to have another banner until at least next February. So that's really crazy long time. So yeah, if you want to have them, definitely take this chance and to summon them. And good luck everyone, and again thanks Kong for making this happen. I'm like looking forward to more collaborations with Kong in the future. Peace.
Thanks so much for coming on with your insights and analysis, Dango. I definitely look forward to collaborating with you again. So with all that said, here's the quick and dirty. We have Rainforce, who's a PvP focused character with a lot of complex AoE moves. He unlocks attack bonds for Virash, Shalinka, and Brenda. Then we have Zerida, who's a top-tier PvP assassin. She's the sole Meteor Strike faction buffer, and she unlocks the attack bonds for Farakia and Yulia. And finally we have Gizarof, who's a supportive summoning mage. He's currently the sole Mythical Realm faction buffer, at least until October, and he unlocks the defensive bond for Rainforce. And now for the usual reminder about upcoming banners. Next week, this banner will overlap with another Destiny banner meant to help you get caught up on previously released characters that you might have missed. Rachel, Lana, and the coveted OP PvE healer Tiaras. After this Mythical Realm fiesta concludes, the next major update is bringing the new characters Rosalia and Nomi to the game. These heroes aren't total game changers like Ares and Reen before them, but Rosalia at least has some interesting use cases. Let me know in the comments if you're summoning on this one or if you're saving up for someone in the future. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon.